I had started out at the Living Desert as a volunteer, and when we moved over to San Diego, got involved with Project Wildlife. Initially, I was on the Crow and Raven rehab team, and then when Mokie came in as a fledgling with a badly broken wing, and they determined that his injury was such that he would not regain enough stability to be released back into the wild. He was then moved to me. So he has been with me approximately a year, 10 years now. He came to me when he was about 4 months old. As you know, ravens are extremely smart. They can live 60 years. He had been with me about a year and a half when he suddenly got on my, he often came to my arm, and I thought that was good because I could preen his feathers while he sat on my arm with that big beak looking right in my face. We had a very good trust. But about 18 months after he had been with me, he suddenly pecked my hand, and then his wings started fluttering and his tail shook, and I went, you know, I've been married for 47 years and I've never been with another man, but I think I just was. My husband now thinks he should bring me a stick so he can ruffle my feathers. In the springtime, Mokie brings me sticks, and sometimes he'll give them to me, and sometimes he'll say, no, follow me across the cage. I want to put it up on his shelf. He wants me to stay in there with him. So I kind of jumped. I was out of the Living Desert. I did work out there with a raven named Mokie, who is still out at the Living Desert. And when I moved over here, I wanted to continue with animals in some way. I knew we didn't have servals and fennec foxes and other things that I was working with, so I got on the Crow and Raven rehab team. I've learned a lot working with him. Now when you become a volunteer with Project Wildlife, they do ask that you start out at the care center and get some basic training. There's some different levels. You can, after you've done some training there, you can get on to one of the other teams, and they have many teams. Carolyn's been on the raptor team, probably could run the raptor team. There are duck teams, there are skunk teams, there are hummingbirds, all sorts of different teams. When you call, if you find an injured bird, and you call our hotline and say, you have to listen to a menu. If you're calling about a songbird, if you're calling about a big blackbird, there are lots of different teams that you can be on. Education and outreach is one of them, and that's where I primarily am. The goal for Project Wildlife is to, after they rescue, to rehabilitate and release the birds back out into the wild. Those that can't be like Mokie, we do have permits to keep them as ambassadors. They're expected to do 12 programs a year, and we have to keep records to prove to Fish and Game or whoever comes to inspect our caging that we are abiding by the rules and regulations of ambassadorship. He has done quite a few programs this last week. Part of the education program is to let people know, we do a lot of kids programs, but to let you know what you can do to help wildlife. And I'm sure all of you are well acquainted with what you do with the plastic rings from, I didn't bring them, the plastic rings that you get with soda cans. You may not be aware that the plastic tops on Slurpees are a problem for our wildlife too. They get into trash cans that are not locked down, and they get through, their heads maybe get through the hole, and then they've got a skirt. They can have to be rescued and get that. So those can be crushed up before you throw them away. Most of you know about like play yogurt. This is a problem for our wildlife. And in fact, play recognized that and wrote on the side of it, protect wildlife crush cup before disposal. But if you put it down on the floor and crush it after you finish eating, chances are there's still yogurt in here, and you at home or the custodian here isn't going to be very happy with you. This is what it would look like. So what we recommend is that you take a couple of snips in it. Why is that necessary? Because there are other critters, like our skunk, who think that the play is tasty also, and they start licking it. And it suddenly becomes a vacuum on their face. And their little paws aren't long enough to knock it off. So they're walking down the street with this on. And I saw a newspaper article quite a few years ago now, but it said skunk in a funk, and it almost made it sound hysterical that, you know, oh, isn't he cute? Well, it's not cute to him. He's not going to live if he has that. And fortunately, they're very good about getting rescued and running off without spraying their rescuers. Speaking of that, you may have heard about our wonderful red-tailed hitchhiker. Yeah. Have you heard about that story? Man over in University City's driving along, and all of a sudden, bam, red-tailed hawk hits his windshield and gets wedged right there. And he called 911, and the operator patched him into Project Wildlife. They said, he'll have to drive to the care center, which is at the foot of Linda Vista, and we'll help you. They were able to put enough pressure on the windshield and the window, or whatever it was, and get the bird out. If you have Facebook, there's a whole segment on the Project Wildlife's Facebook page about Hitchhiker. They rescued him. They put him in a big, carry cage. He went to, he may have been to Carolyn's, I don't know. He went to one of our raptor rehabbers. There were nothing broken. He had a little bit of a shock from the impact, of course, and was released. They actually had media coverage of his being released, so he's really neat. He has the red tails have a nice adaptation for daytime hunting. I keep sort of segueing back and forth here, but their eyelids stick out, their eyebrows stick out just enough over their eyes so they can see in the daytime. They can't put a hat on or the sunglasses to see that little animal out there that he'd like to eat, so he's got that built-in adaptation.